child embodies our ultimate vision, that every Filipino learner will realize their full potential and ultimately reach their biggest dreams, no matter how high, no matter how hard, through quality education. And as our learners aim to soar, we must continue to elevate our goals. Rising, the kite is our emblem of aspiration to deliver the brand of quality in Philippine basic education. The quadrants of the soaring kite symbolize the key reform areas in forwarding this cause, as we embark on this aggressive reform to yield upskilled teachers, well-developed curriculum, improved learning environment, and responsive multi-stakeholder cooperation. Using the colors of our flag, the logo symbolizes our unity and serves as a reminder that it takes a nation to educate a child. Together, we as a nation will have to move forward and gain more momentum so that our vision of quality basic education for all shall take flight. Sama-sama sa pagsulong ng edukalidad.
Makabatang hapon at isang mainit na pagbati sa ating lahat. Welcome back sa ating second episode. Sound off sa comments at sa chat box kung nakasama namin kayo sa first episode. Nag-enjoy ba kayo sa lecture kahapon? Again, ako si Attorney Orville de la Serna, Legal Officer of DepEd Division of Cebu Province at host ng ating pinakaunang webinar, Child Rights in Basic Education. Sa webinar series na ito, sabay-sabay tayong matututo kung ano ang ibig sabihin ng child rights o karapatang pambata base sa mga batas, polisiya, at iba pang mga issuances sa ating bansa at sa international na arena. Layunin ng webinar na ito ang ipaalam ang mga karapatan ng mga bata sa lahat ng mga magulang, teachers, school leaders, school heads, at ang buong school community kung ano ang tinatawag nating general classification of rights at paano ito nakaka-relate sa basic education. Of course, bilang tayo ay nasa isang pandemic situation, kailangan din nating malaman paano ba i-operationalize o isakatupad ang mga karapatang ito sa panahon ng COVID-19 health emergency. Hinihikayat ko kayong lahat na makinig ng mabuti at mag-participate sa ating webinar ngayong hapon para ma-promote ang right of the child in the context of the new normal. Para simulan ng ating programa, tumayo po tayong lahat at para sa Philippine National Anthem at susundan ito ng ecumenical prayer.
kamighimo tolangit sikoy kong kamighimo taaldo ay bulan ikaw ang nagbuhat sa kabituunan ikaw ang nagbuhat sa kalibutan manama mawantog ka warag po ko iling koy ko o Diyos kahibulungan ka busa ikaw lang ang simbahon ko
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فقال ربكم ادعوني أستجب لكم آمين يا رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين اللهم اجمع شمل المسلمين والكريستيان والأمم في مدينة دباو وسلم دائما مجتمعنا هذا بالسلم والأمن والتقدم في بلدنا هذا آمين يا رب العالمين ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على خير خلقه سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين يا رب العالمين.
In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today to praise and worship you and give you thanks for all the things you continue to provide for ourselves and our families. Father, we humbly ask for forgiveness for all the times we have offended you, when we forget to acknowledge your presence in the image of our brothers and sisters, and for moments we fail to be good stewards of the blessings you have given us. Continue to guide and protect each one of us, Lord, that we may always walk in the light of your everlasting love and mercy. Grant us, Father, with your comfort in times of distress and with your strength in times of weakness. Bestow upon us your unending grace and healing, that we may in turn become instruments of gentleness and compassion to others. We ask all this in the name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, with the prayer and the intercession of our Blessed Mother. Amen.
manama mawantog ka warag po ko iling koy ko o Diyos kahibulungan ka busa ikaw lang ang simbahon ko busa ikaw lang ang alagaran ko
Pwede na po tayong maupo at mag-settle down sa ating mga tahanan o kung saan man tayo nakikinig at nanonood sa ating webinar. Maraming salamat sa Davao City Information Office and the National Historical Commission of the Philippines for our videos. Now, first and foremost po, apologies sa mga di nakapasok sa registration ng Zoom. Anyway, meron po naman tayong Facebook kung saan pwedeng manood yung lahat ng tao. For now po, meron tayong more than 8,000 viewers. Sana dadami pa to. Kahapon umabot tayo ng more than 15,000 viewers. Okay? So, for now, para buksan ang ating programa, pakinggan ulit natin ang mensahe ng ating Secretary of Education, Leonor Magtoles Briones.
Magandang araw sa ating lahat. Sa wakas, bigla nating naalaala, bigla nating na-realize na itong lahat na ingay, mga debate, mga away, mga pagsusulat, mga pagmurahan tungkol sa edukasyon, ang bottom line ay ang bata. Dahil ngayon, alalahanin natin, hindi lamang natin alalahanin, pag-isipan natin ang child rights and child protection in basic education. Ito ang tema ng ating webinar series at TV broadcasts. Noong Enero at nagsisimula ang taong 2020, ang mga bata masayang masaya, handa silang pumasok, excited sila, bagong uniform, nanghihingi ng bagong sapatos, mga gadgets, at kung ano-ano pa. Pero nagbago ang panahon, nagbago ang sitwasyon, nabigla na lang tayo na dumapo sa ating bansa at saka sa buong mundo ang COVID-19. Ngunit sa gitna ng ating mga debate, sa gitna ng ating mga exchanges ng opinion, sa ating mga sigawan, sa ating pagmurahan, dapat hindi natin kalimutan na ang bottom line, ang center ng lahat ng mga exertions natin, lahat na ginagawa natin sa edukasyon ay ang bata. At kaya sinasabi ko nga sa aking mga kakilala at mga kaibigan na nagbibigay ng payo sa akin hinggil sa edukasyon, sabi ko nga, kung may apo ka, ba't hindi mo tanungin ang apo mo kung anong gusto niya? Kung may anak ka, may pamangkin ka, bakit hindi mo tanungin yung bata kung ano ba talaga ang gusto niya? Kaysa tayo lamang ang walang katapusang diskurso, walang katapusang debate, walang katapusang kontrobersya. Ginawa na natin ang ating Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan sa ilalim ng Department Order No. 12, Series of 2020 upang sa kabila ng mga hamon na dulot ng pandemyang COVID-19, ating mapatupad ang karapatan ng edukasyon sa edukasyon habang atin din pong binibigyan diin ang karapatan sa kalusugan o kaligtasan at ang makabubuti para sa lahat o ang sinasabi nating common good. Kinikilala ng DALCP na ang child rights at child protection ay mahalagang bahagi ng pag-aaral ng mga bata. Itong lahat na ginagawa natin sa departamento, sa labas ng departamento, mga parents, mga citizens, mga eksperto sa edukasyon ay para sa bata. Sa ilalim ng Department Order No. 12 upang mapatuloy na matuto at makapag-aral ang mga bata sa panahon ng pandemya, napapaloob ang iba't ibang learning delivery modalities. Kaya nag-develop tayo ng tinatawag natin na blended approach to learning. Ang mga bata ay mag-aaral hindi sa karaniwang paraan, nakaharap ang mga guro o face-to-face sa loob ng pisikal na paaralan habang ito ay hindi pa ligtas. Ayaw ng ating mahal na presidente na papasukin ang mga bata habang hindi pa talagang ligtas tayo sa COVID-19. Sa halip, ang mga bata ay mag-aaral sa loob ng bahay gamit ang mga modules, computers, cellphones, telebisyon at radyo. At sa loob ng mundo ng internet o cyberspace o online. Ang mga bata ay mag-aaral sa pag-abay hindi lamang ng mga guro, kundi ng mga magulang. Lalong lumawak at lumaki ang papel ng mga magulang sa edukasyon ng kanilang mga anak. Kaya't napakalaki ng papel na gagampanan ng mga magulang na katuwang o partners ng Department of Education sa pagpapatupad ng pag-aaral ng mga bata sa bahay. Ang mga guro at mga mag-aaral ay makikipag-ugnayan din sa internet, sa cellphone, sa radyo, sa modular systems at iba pang mga paraan. Nakakalungkot po, ngunit batay din po sa pag-aaral noong 2015, 3 sa 5 bata ang nakakaranas ng karahasan o pang-aabuso at sa tahanan o bahay, pangunahing nangyayari ito. Sa ibang pagkakataon, nangyayari din ito sa paaralan at komunidad, lalo na sa panahon ng pandemya na maraming pamilya ang naghihirap sa kawalan ng trabaho o kakulang ng kita. Dagdagan pa ang tungkulin na isagawa ng mga bata ang pag-aaral sa tahanan. Maaring may mga pagkakataon na nauubos ang pasensya ng magulang o guardian at natatrato ng hindi maganda o marahas ang mga bata. Sa buong buwan ng September, sa unang bahagi ng October, isasagawa natin itong mga webinars tungkol sa child rights and education. Sa September 7, 8, 14, and 15, 2020, Child Protection in Education in the Time of COVID-19. Mahalaga ito, hindi lamang kailangan i-protect natin ang health ng mga bata, i-protect natin ang rights nila to education, but i-protect din natin sila physically from the many dangers and the risks that children are exposed to. At nakikita natin ito sa statistiko. So, from September 28 to October 2, we have been holding yung tinatawag na positive discipline in education for parents and guardians. Sa ilalim ng temang Isulong, Karapatan ng mga bata sa edukasyon. Itong mahalaga, ako ay tuwang-tuwa na rin-recognize natin ito hindi lamang sa Pilipinas, kundi sa buong mundo, sa pamamagitan ng United Nations, na ang mga bata ay may karapatan din. May karapatan silang matuto, may karapatan silang mag-aral, may karapatan silang magiging ligtas physically, mentally, and emotionally, lalo na sa panahon ng COVID-19. Layunin ng mga webinars na ito na tayo ay paalalahanin, turuan, tulungan at suportahan ang ating pagtataguyod sa karapatan ng mga bata. Ang mga bata ay may karapatan din. Kaya paulit-ulit ko sa lahat na nagbibigay ng payo, nagbibigay ng opinyon, itong lahat ay welcome. Paulit-ulit kong sinasabi, tanungin natin ang bata. Ano ba talaga ang gusto ng bata? Ano ba ang nakakabuti para sa kanya? At karamihang bata, sumusulat sila sa akin. By 8 or 9, marunong na yang magpadala ng Twitter, marunong na silang magpadala ng messages sa Facebook. Sinasabi nilang gusto nilang mag-aral. Gusto nilang patuloy silang mag-aaral. At interesado talaga silang madagdagan yung kanilang kaalaman. May iba pa nga dahil hindi na sila ma-admit sa mga lugar o mga eskwelahan na gustong-gusto sana nila. Sumusulat sa akin, nag-a-appeal, nakikiawa na sana payagan silang pumasok sa syudad na ito o sa paaralang ito. Ang mga bata ngayon, pag marunong na silang sumulat, marunong na silang mag-handle ng gadgets, marunong na silang magsalita, sinasabi nila ang gusto nila. At kailangan pakinggan sila dahil yan ay karapatan nila. Kaya ikinagagalak namin banggitin na ang mga webinars o capacity building activities na ito ay sa kauna-unahang pagkakataon kinikilalang bahagi ng professional development program ng mga guro at kawani ng Department of Education sa ilalim ng National Educators Academy of the Philippines ng DepEd. Ito ay malaking hakbang na sumusuporta at sumusulong sa karapatan ng mga bata at nagpapatibay na ang DepEd ay naniniwala at tumatalima sa rights-based education. Ako ay nagpapasalamat sa Office ng Undersecretary for Legal Affairs led by Yusek Jo Maribohok at sa National Educators Academy led by Dr. John Siena of the Philippines. Kasama ang ating mga partners, UNICEF Philippines, talagang napakalaking tulong ng UNICEF sa atin, Save the Children Philippines, Stairway Foundation, na bumubuo at nagpapatupad ng serye ng mga webinars tungkol sa child rights, child protection, at positive discipline. Ulitin ko, ang daming nagsasalita, ang daming nagsusulat, ang daming nagsisigaw, ang daming nakikipag-away tungkol sa edukasyon. Pakinggan natin ang mga bata. Tanungin natin kung anong gusto nila. Bigyan natin sila ng pagkakataon na masabi kung anong gusto nila para sa buhay nila. Bigyan din natin sila ng proteksyon, hindi lamang sa pangkalusugan, hindi lamang sa pang-edukasyon o sa learnings, kundi emotionally as well as psychologically. Para sila ay lalaki, para sila ay lalabas sa ating educational system, handa na silang humarap sa yung tinatawag na bagong normal, yung bagong mundo na magiging kanila na. Handain natin ang ating mga bata in terms of physical protection, in terms of educational learning protection, but also psychological and social protection. And most of all, let us ask them what they want. That is the right of the child. Thank you.
Maraming salamat sa ating butihing kalihim at masigasig na leader, Secretary Leonor Briones. Sabi nga ni Secretary, maraming learning delivery modes. Pwede sa online, TV, radio, at self-learning kits. May blended din. Kaya, ang importante talaga ay suportahan natin ang pag-aaral ng ating mga bata. Okay? So for now, gusto kong tawagin si Attorney Hill Anthony Aquino, Executive Assistant and Child Rights Senior Officer mula sa Office of the Undersecretary for Legal Affairs para i-explain sa atin ang objectives ng webinar natin ngayon hapon. Second episode na po tayo. Attorney Hill, over to you.
So thank you, Attorney Orville. Magandang araw po sa ating lahat at maraming salamat sa pagdalo niyo sa ating webinar ngayong araw. Now, ang webinar na ito ay parte ng webinar series na may temang Isulong, Karapatan ng Bata sa Edukasyon sa Panahon ng COVID-19. Now, mayroon 3 parte ang webinar series na ito. Una, ang Child Rights in Education. Pangalawa, ang child protection in education at the time of COVID-19. And pangatlo, positive discipline in education for parents and guardians. Kahapon, nung episode 1, tinalakay natin ang fundamental principles on a rights-based framework for education at ang right to development. Ngayong araw ay episode 2 ng Child Rights in Education na may topic na the right to participation. Itong webinar series na ito ay inorganisa ng Office of the Undersecretary for Legal Affairs ng DepEd sa tulong ng National Educators Union of the Philippines at Public Affairs Service. Partner din namin dito ang UNICEF Philippines, Save the Children Philippines, and Stairway Foundation Incorporated. And for this episode, katulong din namin dito ang Positive Youth Development Network or PYDN at ang National PTA Association of the Philippines, and our Filipino language interpreters are from Humanity and Inclusion Philippines. Pinapaalala rin po namin, and this is very important, para sa mga participants na pinadalahan namin ng memorandum at para sa mga teaching personnel ng DepEd, earn credit points for your professional development portfolio by attending and learning from today's webinar. This webinar is part of course number 2 on learner well-being and learner welfare ng LCP courses ng NAYAP. So, please watch out for the announcement kung kailan magiging active ang link to the post-test and the evaluation later during the webinar. Okay, thank you. And back to you, Attorney Orbs.
Maraming salamat, Attorney Hill, at sa ating mga partners sa webinar na ito. Gaya ng sinabi ni Attorney Hill, paalala lang sa ating mga participants sa Zoom at sa Facebook, meron po tayong attendance sheet at evaluation form bawat episode. Pagkatapos ng ating programa, ipopost po namin sa Facebook at sa chat box ng Zoom at sa comment section ang link para sa attendance at evaluation. Hanggang today lang po ang live yung link natin. So stay with us hanggang sa dulo ng ating webinar. Also, we will be issuing e-certificates. Okay? Sabi nga ni Attorney Hill, we will be issuing e-certificates. So make sure that you get the links. For now, meron na tayong 15,000 viewers. Sana dumami pa. Okay? So, for now, para sa ating lecture ngayong hapon, let us all welcome back our resource speaker, Ms. Teresita Felipe, Education Specialist from UNICEF Philippines. Ms. Tess Felipe, as mentioned, is the Education Specialist of UNICEF Philippines. She's a strong advocate for the rights of children and youth to learning, skills development, and participation in society. She worked with DepEd for many years, serving many important functions, including as Assistant Secretary for Planning and Development. In her current role at UNICEF, she continues to mentor DepEd on the introduction of equity tools, innovations for quality learning, cutting-edge researches, and development of the basic education sector plan. She now brings global innovations to realize stronger commitments for the rights of our children to quality and inclusive education. Ms. Tess, the floor is yours.
Magandang araw pong muli sa inyong lahat. Ako po uli si Tess Felipe from UNICEF Manila Country Office. Ngayon, pagpapatuloy na natin ang ating pag-uusap. This is episode 2, The Rights of the Child to Participation. I hope you have kept many notes from yesterday. They will be very useful for the reflections for today's session. So let's begin the session. On the next slide, this is the outline of my presentation. Again, we will look at another framework which is called Child Rights Education, specifically prepared by UNICEF in 2014 to kind of prepare a more detailed guideline on how are we going to implement at different levels the policies, the programs that will ensure the rights of the child are realized, whoever they are, wherever they are, and whenever they will be in the education system. And we will look closely at COVID-19 and child rights. We know that there's a lot of challenges, but we'll try to talk about how do we bridge inequities. And lastly, we will have our final reflection from what we have learned from episode 1 through episode 2 today, and ask ourselves, how can I make a difference? What can I do in my own personal position, authority, or interest maybe in promoting the rights of every child? Okay, so let's unpack another framework. On the next slide, you will see the child rights approach in full. If you noted, there is an arch which shows the duty bearer and the rights holder on the other side. And there's a table where the child stands. And it contains the CRC Article 6, the right to life, survival, and development. Again, I will underscore that the right to development, or largely understood that the right to education, is not really exclusive. It has to be seen with the other right, the right to life, survival specifically. So the duty bearers, their duty is to create an enabling environment for children to enjoy the rights. And the rights holder, kilala ba natin sila? Siyempre, yung mga bata, ano? The children. Meron din silang some kind of responsibility to themselves. That is to be aware, to be capacitated, to, how do you call that, size opportunity, to support others or get support, and to redress from whatever problems or issues or threats are facing them at any moment. So the Arch of Human Rights actually applies to both adults and children. So when considering child rights more specifically, the child rights holder, the children, while the duty bearers are the state, as we know, and by extension, professionals, including you, teachers, supervisors, school heads, caregivers, community members, and others. The arts relationship reflect the fact that it is a mutually supportive relationship that requires developing capacities on both sides of the duty bearer to meet their obligations to respect, protect, and fulfill the rights, and of the right holders to claim their rights. Yan, tandaan nyo yan, ha? So the arch and the table are always together. And if you look at the table, the foundations or the legs of the table are the CRC provisions, which is, if I may mention, one of the the foundations, yung paa nung lamesa, is CRC Article 2, non-discrimination, and we have talked about that yesterday. CRC Article 3, best interest of the child. CRC Article 5, family, community, guidance, in line with evolving capacities to help children exercise their rights. And of course, CRC Article 12, which is participation. And we will talk about the last one in more depth today. So implementation to the maximum extent of available resources is also part of that at the base of the table. So there are a lot of things that need to be considered. And now we will have to kind of get a more in-depth understanding of what these are and how we can make a difference. Okay, on the next slide. Again, I would like to emphasize that protection and participation are also interlinked. So the right to protection cannot be realized alone. without the right to participation. That's why this training program is very much well designed, I must say. Thank you to the Office of USEC Maribohok for putting together, and all of the NAYAP staff who guided us, resource persons, on what to talk about so that all of us are better aware on how we can help promote children's rights. Okay. We will discuss participation more at length because protection will be discussed in episode 4 by another expert. Okay, moving on. I would like to share with you a slide. Please listen very carefully because we will have some reflection on what the video is telling us, what children are telling us. Okay, so can we play the video now?
They say, children should be seen and not heard. They say, you'll understand when you're older. You're just a kid. But a kid swam for 3 hours on the open sea to save 18 lives and became an activist for refugees. A kid broke through barriers to keep migrant families together and delivered a message of hope. Let us fight with love, faith, and courage so that our families will not be destroyed. A kid was forced to kill in a brutal civil war and became a human rights activist, freeing other children from violence. A kid fought for girls' right to education, was shot in the head in retaliation, and won the Nobel Prize.
This award is not just for me. It is for those forgotten children who want education, who want peace, who want change.
And a kid spoke truth to power, inspiring a historic movement against climate change.
We kids shouldn't have to do this. I wish that the adults would take their responsibility and do this instead. But since no one is doing anything, we have to.
Kids are speaking up. Kids are demanding their rights. Kids are acting now for a better tomorrow. What will you do?
Thank you very much for your attention on the video. Now, let's use the video to do our third reflection. So, please write in the chat box or a piece of paper, what did you learn from the video? What struck you the most from the video? Thank you for your reflections. I am sure many of you have indicated the words participation, right to be heard, engagement of children, listening, problem solving, collaboration, and many more. Keep your notes and we will use them again. Traditional educators view children as passive beneficiaries of our services. But from the video, we learned that children are part of the solutions only if we listen and let them participate. Okay, so let's unpack what we've learned. In the slide in front of you is child rights education. It is another framework guided by the human rights-based approach. UNICEF developed a toolkit to guide implementation of child rights approach to education, which I hope will be useful to all of you. Child rights education is a special subset of human rights education. CRE builds on HRE. CE, child rights education and other similar concepts using child rights approach as a unifying framework. It applies a child rights lens to all three areas of people, planet, and economy. and it offers a powerful framework for analysis. It is directly relevant to education for an equitable and sustainable future. So these are big words, and it relates to not just today, tomorrow, but to a longer, more sustainable future. And development aid is also mentioned in the embedded concept, sustainable resources. So child rights is not just about education, but as we mentioned earlier, holistic development, indivisibility of all rights. So global education is very broad. It is often divided into three, as I have mentioned. And we will try to understand how these three, people, planet, economy, are being used, or how do I say it, integrated in the curriculum that we implement in our schools. So moving on with the next slide. So on the slide, you will see the CRE3. It has the main tank, learning as a right, 3 branches, learning about rights, learning through rights, and learning for rights. Don't worry about the small fonts. We will cut the tree and analyze branch by branch in a little while. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So the key principles, this is the middle, the whole school approach to CRE means teach children about the roles and rights that they will acquire as future adult citizens. Inform children that they have rights, but not allow for their exercise. Why is that happening? So they need to understand. Teach rights in a selective way, focusing narrowly on such issues as how fortunate children are to have, for example, protection rights. Teach about violations of children's rights in developing countries. So many angles of child rights, but it has key principles: inclusive, meaning life cycle development; child-centeredness; democratic, protective, sustainable, and promoting child rights. Okay, moving on. Let's begin with learning as a right. This is one of the branches, and if you can see, there are different benchmarks. From the bottom part, it's adapting a life cycle approach. As we have learned, it begins when the child is conceived in the mother's womb until it becomes, in fact, an adult. And equity, providing accessible, available schools to all types, needs of children, and removing economic barriers to education, promoting inclusion, and of course, ending discrimination. Okay, so what about the next slide, which is learning about rights? There. Sorry if I am covering the parts in the upper, but if you look through the tree, it says one of the core components of CRE is learning about rights. In order to learn about rights, there needs to be sufficient space within the curriculum for children to spend time learning about rights in a structured and guided environment. This class time space usually needs to be integrated into the official intended curriculum. So you see the box which says intended curriculum. In addition to including CRE or human rights education into the official curriculum, children need age-appropriate facilitation by trained and motivated educators. The implemented curriculum, as you can see it in the tree, in the taught curriculum, the process of how the official curriculum is actually taught in practice. So we know all of that. So therefore, both the official, intended, and the taught curriculum are important. Children learn just as much about their rights outside formal classroom teaching. For example, from their experiences in the wider school environment, at home, and in the community. All this feeds into what children actually learn in practice. That is what they take away from their school experience. This is known as the learned or attained curriculum. All these dimensions have an impact on and reinforce each other. So if you look at the branches of the tree, you will see in the intended curriculum, you have the subjects, different subjects, math, history, languages. And then as part of social studies, religion, the intrinsic to the child, general studies, and it could be a topic per se, CRE as a topic in any subject, or human rights as a topic, etc. And in teacher education, it is also critically important as part of both the pre-service and the in-service. And in the resources that we produce, especially now in time of COVID, the online, the print, and the multimedia, we should be conscious, deliberate on including topics, messages about child rights. And of course, event speakers, we can engage children to become not just us adults, we can also engage them. So there are, on the screen, the government needs to focus on, as I had mentioned, changes in the intended curriculum, taught curriculum, learned curriculum, and the broader school environment, which includes a child-friendly and rights-respecting environment, and in the overall policies and planning. And I think that's the idea behind this training workshop, is to embed the child rights concepts into what the child should learn and is actually learning. Okay, on the next slide, let's go through the next one, which is learning through rights. And this is basically the right to quality education. And it has key elements, as you can see, a broad, relevant, inclusive curriculum. We have mentioned that in episode 1. But I would like to underscore that the right to quality education enables the child to fulfill his or her potential, realize opportunities for employment, and develop life skills. So as you can see in the branch of the tree, learning through rights, there's got to be a transformation in the learning environment. And when we say child-friendly, safe, and healthy environment, that includes, on the first branch, the internet, sustainable use of products, health and safety, location, design, construction. So there's a lot of things that we need to consider in the school system, even the use of the gadgets right now. And on the rights-based learning assessment, pedagogy, and learning assessment at the classroom level, which fits the needs of a child, because they are differently able in terms of abilities and maybe special needs. And free from stereotypes. Did you see that on the upper branch? That is very important. Accessible, relevant. So every child is special. We don't brand special child, because they are they have some kind of disabilities. Okay, so let's move on to the next branch, which is learning through rights. And this is the right to respect in the safe learning environment. And there are key elements: respect for identity, respect for participation rights, which we will talk about, respect for integrity. And there are measures around that: equal respect for every right, for every child, opportunities for meaningful participation, freedom from all forms of violence. Zero tolerance to violence is always a policy in every country, in every school system. But are they realistic? Are they able to realize that in full? Is a big question mark. Respect for language, culture, and especially religion. In many countries, some types of religious belief are kind of discriminated in different education systems. In fact, some are expelled because of their religious belief. And we have to be very careful about that, because it's the child's right, you know, to practice their own religion and their own belief, even if they are in the school. Okay, so if you look at the branch more closely, the transformation in the learning environment in terms of the identity is revolving around the language of instruction. That's why we have MTB MLE, inclusion of individual children, religious cultural rights. And then on the participation, we have peer support. We'll talk about that. So let's move on to the next slide, which is now we are deep diving into the respect for participation rights. And there are benchmarks for action, student participation for all levels and throughout the school. It is one of the 6 umbrella rights, or one of the main table legs. Remember the table that I showed and the arch, the leg test? This should underpin all efforts to transform learning environments. As children's participation, particularly the participation of children with disabilities, is one of the areas which often receive the least amount of attention. And we will try to unpack that in a while. But I would like to mention the 2 other benchmarks on your screen, which is the involvement of children in development of school policies. Is that the first time you hear about that? There are many countries, in fact, where UNICEF work, that children whom we thought cannot contribute to policy development, because they know, they know what they need. So we adults should listen to them, and they can contribute to solutions, as I mentioned, policies on issues relating to them. Non-discrimination, for example, disciplinary codes, for example. And the other benchmark for action is consultation between children, community, minority groups, and ministries of education around the globe. Okay, so let's look at examples. On the next slide, there are examples of children's participation vis-a-vis the branch, which we have looked at. So in terms of life skills, this is just an example. Critical thinking, I know this is very much embedded as we intend to in the K-12 curriculum. Textbook skills, and even a simple HIV awareness is considered a life skills. So if we keep them informed about the risk of HIV, then they have gained, the right to protect themselves against the risk of HIV. On mechanisms, I know that in the Philippines, there is participation, student representation in school governing boards, school governing councils, SMCs. And there are many schools in the Philippines where I saw a lot of productive, very engaging school clubs, which really help the child develop not just cognitively, but emotionally, artistically. And I commend schools who have used school clubs as a way to develop the child in a more, how do I say it, more developmentally, emotionally sociable way of learning. And then peer complaint groups. Have you heard about that? There are countries where UNICEF work, where these peer complaint groups headed by, managed by children are very much working. Because sometimes they don't talk individually, but when you put them in a group and they elect a leader, then they can talk about their concerns, and that concern goes up into the school management, and school management can do something. And then spaces and opportunities, circle time or group time, giving them time to work on their own or associate on a different objectives, child-led assemblies, comments boxes. This is very common in many school systems. At the end of a class, they can just drop a comment, or others, they use a sticky note. They just put a sticky note. The comment can be positive, can be negative, and they don't have the right to, the child doesn't have to write his or her name. But this is very useful for the teacher to understand what's in the mind of the child during class time, so that they can do they can take appropriate actions. On program management cycle, children can also contribute to research. They can provide inputs, especially if the research is about the child. Planning initiatives, let's engage them in School improvement plan. I know they are actively participating in your SIPs, implementing initiatives to improve child rights. So let's kind of encourage them. These are the problems in terms of promoting child rights. Can you help us implement? And monitoring and evaluation, where how effective the school is or the division office is in promoting child rights from the lens of the children themselves. Peer support, buddy system, mentoring system. I know this is done in a lot of schools in the Philippines where you have remedial classes where peer support is happening. The higher grades, the better performing child is helping the lagging behind child. And I commend schools who are really embarking on that. A welcome committee for new students. It's the kids who manage that committee, and they create, they have different initiatives, come-ons, interest groups on how to welcome new students. And another example is I Need a Friend playground or meeting place. And I've seen that in, I think in Southeast Asia, they really have some kind of a kiosk, and it's I Need a Friend space. So anyone feeling lonely can sit there, and then somebody else would come. Okay, I hope those examples were useful. So moving on to learning for rights. This is the third branch. The key elements, as you can see in the drawing, is local community and global community. And the measures are around awareness raising, advocacy, campaigning, taking action for the spheres of the people and the planet. And I would like to underscore, if you can see it in your screen, under global solidarity, there's a branch which is tagged as relationships. And it is about twinning. There's a lot of buddy system. There are school-to-school buddy. A school in Mindanao may buddy with a school in Luzon. Pen pals, why not? Voices of youth, connecting them, why not, right? So maybe we can support them. And also in the local community, it even talks about joint fundraising, volunteering, campaigning, and advocacy. And the families, maybe through newsletters, parent, teachers, student groups, we have that now, the PTCAs. But I think the message is that how do we use the PTCA group to talk about child rights? I think that's the challenge that I want you to take on. How do you use those groups, associations in the school to promote child rights? Okay, so let's look at the foundations in the next slide. The foundation and sustainability. As you know, as you have seen, the CRE is a tree. It's really a tree, and it's nicely. The framework is very nice because the roots, if you can see A, B, C, D, E, F, the roots are the CRC. Maybe it's too small in your screen, but these are the CRC and the child rights, talking about equity, participation. So without those roots, commitments, then the plant will not grow, the tree will not grow. And you look at the branches, there are certain elements. Protection is needed. Did you see that? There's a small fence so that intruders or wild animals will not go and dig in. And fertilizer, there's got to be a fertilizer. And there's a seasonal planning on what to do with the tree. Pruning if needed, because if something is useless, better prune it so that it will regrow. Energy, motivation, and vision. Resources, in fact, it says ×4. It's human, financial, material, and technical. So it's really a very nice tree. And this guides the UNICEF work in many of our programs, not just education, but also in the other sectors, health, nutrition, child protection, social policy even. So let's now look at COVID-19 in the next slide. COVID-19 and child rights. Globally, all children have been affected by the closure of schools due to COVID-19 and health risks. the rights that we talk about were either partially realized or not realized at all. The clear truth is that marginalized children before COVID-19 are at higher risk. This means vulnerabilities may expand. That's why on the screen, we can see the learning continuity plan prepared by DepEd, and we were happy. UNICEF is happy being part, having contributed to some of the thinking through in the learning continuity plan. On the next slide, let's see who are the most vulnerable. And I would like to, this is a global list. It may or may not be applicable to certain contexts in your schools or districts. Girls in many countries are very vulnerable because priority to education is given to boys. Children with disabilities, struggling learners, maybe they're struggling due to different issues. Maybe they are poor, they are kind of neglected in their homes. And children from ethnic and linguistic minorities. Children on the move, migrant refugees and internally displaced children. Have you heard about Filipino children in Sabah, Malaysia? They have been a subject of many discourses. UNICEF was even included in the discourse because their parents are there. They are called stateless. So the state of Sabah, Malaysia, doesn't recognize them. Therefore, they're not provided with the learning opportunity. They cannot enroll. And yet in the Philippines, the Philippines cannot also establish a school in Sabah, Malaysia, because it's illegal, because there's a political dispute. So what happens is the children who are affected. And those kind of issues, we have to bear that in our mind because they are also children on the move, migrant, refugees. Children in the rural and hard to reach areas, the last mile schools that DepEd is trying to reach. Children from the poorest communities, they are the most vulnerable. Maybe you have something else on your list. Keep it, write it, and it will be something important for us to reflect later. So how do we bridge on the next screen? How do we bridge inequity in learning during COVID-19? Ulitin ko yung sinabi ko.
How do we bridge?
How do we bridge inequity in learning during COVID-19? This is a global framework or menu, but many are applicable to Philippines context. PSS is psychosocial support, protection, prevention, and management of gender-based violence. And the things to do, the programs are guarding against safety risks at home and online, and engaging CP or child protection support mechanisms. Protection and inclusion of children on the move. Again, we talk about children in camps or maybe in, like what I mentioned, stateless. And we have to help them by providing them maybe with hot meals, mitigate the risk against armed recruitment, putting girls' education at the center, addressing digital gender divide, burden of upholding multiple roles, because in many economies, the girls really stay home to help in the household chores while the boy child is sent to school. Learning beyond the school curricula. This means supporting children to learn beyond school curricula, including transferable skills. You must have heard about that. 21st century skills, because those are the foundations, in fact, of cognitive skills. Before a child can learn academic things, they need to learn the socio-emotional or the skill on how to learn. Accelerated education, remedial catch-up programs. So when planning school reopening, what UNICEF and UNESCO has been really promoting across the globe is to prioritize strategies to help marginalized children to make up for the lost time, because they have been lagging behind pre-COVID, and we all know that all the more that they will lag behind with the school closure. And open up better. What does that mean? meaning if we should restore school services better learning environment. There is safety, health provisions are better, nutrition provisions are better. So there's a lot of opportunities. And we see many of these being included in the learning continuity plan. So on the next slide, just to briefly show you UNICEF's ongoing and future support for vulnerable children through conscious learning, flexible multi-way approaches. So the message is build back better. As we open the school, we should take the opportunity, the emergency as an opportunity to help reduce the disparities. And how do we do that? By the same thing that we're doing today, talking about who are the marginalized, whom we should pay attention to. And of course, evidence-based advocacy and system strengthening. And I'm really happy that we have this seminar because we talk about beyond the curriculum. We talk about beyond academic things, but specific risks that affects the child's potential to development, which is largely providing them with a protective learning environment. Now in COVID, post-COVID, not just learning environment at school, but learning environment at home, because many will be doing home learning in different modalities. And online learning, I missed that one. Many of the ministries of education use e-platform, and we know that DepEd is strengthening its own DepEd Commons. And we are happy to see that progressing. Okay, so let's look at the basic education in the next slide, learning continuity plan. So the guiding principles in the plan, I hope all of you have seen the learning continuity plan. It was launched by DepEd through, I think, a DepEd order. And I encourage you all to look through it because it's an important guidance for all of us. The guiding principle includes protecting health, safety, and well-being of teachers, non-teaching staff, and of course, children. Ensuring learning continuity for all, not just those who can afford the internet connection, but for all, including those children in the bundok who do not have internet, right? Safe return to schools and workplaces. And that means not just the school premises, but the roads, the vehicles that will bring them to the schools. Because now with the COVID, everyone has to take extra health precautions not to be infected. Sensitivity to equity considerations. And quality learning, that's very important. And you will note in the learning continuity plan that quality learning is a very good, is a highlight, despite the many lag behind, you know. Quality learning is still important. And there are different learning modalities. I won't go through it. You know them by now. But I would like to underscore the last one, face-to-face, which is suspended up to now until we get approval from IATF. But many countries in Southeast Asia have opened schools because interaction is really very important for children. We believe in UNICEF that online learning is not a substitute to the teacher facing the child and the child interacting with another child. So we hope that very soon schools reopening, having face-to-face where it is safe and where schools are ready to protect children will happen very soon. Okay, so we are almost at the end. On the next slide, this is the third part. How can I make a difference? This is a question to all of us. What are my takeaways for episodes 1 and 2? What changes will I do to help children better realize rights in education? So I'm not saying that they're not realizing, but we want them to better realize their right in education. And what's the impact of COVID-19? What new policies are needed? What new innovations are needed? So this reflection is very important, and I will not give the answers to this. Again, moving on to the next slide. This is the last reflection. Reflection number 4. Can you kindly write in a piece of paper 2 to 5 sentences? Maybe not in the chat box. You have to write it in your own paper. 2 to 5 sentences. How can I make a difference for child rights in education? What can I do? What will I bring home after these episodes 1 and 2? There's no right or wrong answer. Please don't be shy. Just write what's in your mind or what you feel right now. But it's an action, because the question is, how can I make a difference for child rights in education? Okay, I think we should move on, and you can continue writing maybe after this seminar. On the next slide, I will show you again I've shown this, I think, in the first episode, what guides UNICEF work. And on the next slide, these are the references. So I would like to thank everyone for listening to episodes 1 and 2. I'm really very happy to have participated to this very important endeavor. And maraming salamat po. Magkita-kita po tayong muli sa ibang pagkakataon. Salamat!
Thank you very much, Ms. Tess, for a very contentful discussion about the right of the child to participation. Sabi nga ng video kanina, kids are acting now for a better tomorrow. At saka, sabi ni Ms. Tess kanina din, children are part of the solution only if we listen to them and we let them participate. At saka kanina din, may nasabi din si Secretary Briones. Sabi ni Secretary, we need to ask the children what they want and we let them participate. That is very, very important. Okay? So once again, let's give a round of applause to Ms. Tess Felipe, our resource speaker. So ngayon, inuulit ko para sa ating mga participants, meron tayong attendance at evaluation, okay? After the webinar. So make sure na maghintay hanggang sa dulo ng ating programa para makuha ang link, okay? So sabi nga kanina, may e-certificate tayong ibibigay pero yung link mamaya pa sa dulo ng ating webinar. Kagaya ng kahapon, meron tayong 3 bisita na magbibigay ng kanilang insights sa lecture ni Ms. Tess. Sila ang bumubuo at ang mga importanteng mga tao sa ating school community. Ang school head, ang parents, and of course, our learners. We welcome back our first reactor, Mr. Alain Mendoza, Principal and School Head of Parang National High School, Calapan City, Oriental Mindoro. Hello again, Sir Alain. Our second reactor is the National Parent Teacher Association President, Federation President, Mr. Willie Rodriguez. Welcome, Sir Willie. And representing our learners, Shireen Gale Taaka, Senior High School student of the University of San Agustin, Iloilo. Hello po sa inyong tatlo and welcome sa ating webinar. For the first reaction, may we call on our learner, Shireen. Shireen, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. So I would like, good afternoon to everyone. So I hope I am audible and clear so that everyone can grasp the message that
Yes, you
I
are.
want to deliver to everyone. So first, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to DepEd Philippines and Positive Youth Development Network for extending me this rare opportunity. So when I was assigned to be the child reactor in this webinar series entitled Episode 2, The Right of the Child to Participation, what popped up in my mind first when I heard the right to participation is us children, our rights to the freedom of speech, our rights to express an opinion, to communicate our views, for it to be listened and taken seriously, without criticizing the main point or the whole idea. But as the webinar go through, I have realized and what has been instilled in me is that there is more in the word participation. So as we adopt the new normal, there has been a growing concern over the erosion of sensitivity to our children. So there's a need and it is critical to understand and realize the best interests of the child. So when it comes to child rights in education, especially we are facing a global pandemic and we have to adjust. That's why we have different learning modalities just to cope in new normal of education. It is still necessary that in this new normal, we have to provide a desirable environment for the children, for them to enjoy their rights and still enable them to have the best opportunity to make their learning setting, even away from the school, a four-wall of trust where they can feel that they are appreciated, that they are can be heard and can be seen. So, and where they can find their purpose and develop their full potentials. So the school plays an important role in helping and influencing children learn to interact positively with their peers and teachers about healthy relationship skills and develop them further through interactions both in the classroom and outside the school. So we still need to be aware in the fact that not everyone has the access nor the same level of privilege to take part in promoting children's participation, usually the individuals who are lacking of information. We have to involve each child, let them engage in activities and initiatives. We should let them dream and think that their voice matters. We should invest in giving the children opportunities for them to participate that will match their interests with their needs. So this will give them a more specific and clear role in making an impact to the society. And lastly, I would like to address and highlight that children's participation and involvement is crucial to the progress of their success and the development of the nation. And I think that's all. Thank you so much.
Wow. Di lang pala maganda yung child student leader natin, napakagaling pa. Okay? Napakagaling na ating student leader at speaker na si Shireen.
Thank you so much.
Now, thank you very much, Shireen. Now, punta naman tayo sa side ng ating mga parents and caregivers. Over to you, Sir Will.
Okay, ako na, no? Okay, magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Secretary Liling Nanay Briones, Yusek Maribohok, at ang buong legal team na nag-organize ng ating webinar na ito. Napakalaking tulong ito sa ating sambayanan, lalo na sa mag-aaral at magulang, teachers at implementing officials. Ito na po siguro yung pinakamalaking benepisyo na dulot ang epidemyang ito. Nakita at nabigyan ng pansin ang partisipasyon ng mga magulang at school partners. Nagkaroon ng komunikasyon, nakikita ang mga mahal naming opisyal ng DepEd Central. Napakalaking bagay po ngayon ang ginawang synchronized election ng ating SSG, Supreme Student Governance ng opisina ni Secretary Yusek Alain Del Pascua. Dito na po na-empower ang child participation, which is very crucial in child protection for them to know and share their duties, responsibilities, and rights. empowering them by strict implementation of DepEd guidelines such as giving knowledge in child protection, committee in every schoolrooms, not just within the SSG and officers in schools. Okay, National PTA created a perpetual Facebook group for Parent Teachers Student Association, PTSA, to have a portal for student platform in information and guide to support, unite, and have a discussion board, exchange of ideas, monitor, report for the SSG, SPG volunteer students. Okay, National PTA, where they can ask questions, share their experience, connect with community, continuous participation as ex officio advisors for incoming new elected SSG, SPG. Ang SSG po ay po sa ang SSG po ay kasama sa PTA Affairs Committee at napakalaki pong bagay po ito sa amin. Sana po ma-empower sila sa partisipasyon ng DepEd Order 40, Child Protection Policy, at DepEd Order 49. Ito po yung aming Parent Teachers Student Association of the Philippines na ginawa po namin. Okay, ang student representative of PTA, the Supreme Student Governance, SSG. Ito po ay napakalaking bagay para po sa ating mga mag-aaral. Dito po namin na ikita yung tinatawag naming communication between parents, students, nasusupport po namin ang aming child, ang partisipasyon ng mga estudyante po natin. Yun lang po, sir. Magandang araw.
Maraming salamat sa inyong mga suggestions, Sir Will. Magandang mga opinion po talaga yung mga sinabi nyo. So now po, we call on Sir Elaine. Sir Elaine, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, attorney. So I hope naririnig ako ng ayos, ano. So I'm excited dito sa topic na ito na student participation. As a former, before becoming a school principal, kasi dati akong SK chairman at student leader. So nitong school principal na ako, talagang advocate ako ng para maging malawak lalo ang participation ng mga batang ito. Ngayon sa DepEd, I could say na we are on the right track. Ano, kumbaga if we're going to compare before, nung panahon ng mga lolo-lola natin, mga nanay-tatay, we are more democratic, no? Kasi, di ba nung araw, pag may matapang na guro, pinagalitan yung bata. Yung bata hindi magsusumbong sa magulang, mauulit pa. Pero ngayon, ang bata, mas aware sila sa kanilang karapatan. At sa amin, sa school level, merong mga Facebook page ang school. At nakikita doon ng mga bata rin yung mga activities, projects, at mga program. And they could express their stand, their opinion, their suggestion. Ano? So, in our situation here in Calapan City, in the schools division of Calapan City, so we're doing our best na ma-address at mapalawak lalo ang participation ng mga bata. And we are happy that our city government helped us like Best Kids program, na nagdi-develop ng entrepreneurial skills sa mga bata. And strong partnership with Sangguniang Kabataan, naglalagay ng mga little mayor, little city councilor, so nagiging mas malawak yung participation ng mga bata. So sa school level naman, hindi yung SSG, of course, sila talaga yung mga vocal, ano, at automatic dyan na member ang SSG president ng school governing council, ano. And aside from that, we strengthen also the city government. Tinutulungan kami para sa reproduction ng school paper, school organ, na makakapag-express ng opinion at ng kanilang mga gustong sabihin ng mga bata. So yesterday, I'm listening also sa student leader natin, student panelist, about the special program ng DepEd. Yeah. Kagaya ng special program for the arts, special program for sports. Napakaganda ng ganitong mga programa ng DepEd because we are addressing unique uniqueness of learners, the diversity of learners. Sa school na pinanggalingan ko, pinakamalaki ang buong province, may mga ganitong program. At nung lalipat ako sa pinakamaliit na school sa aming city, nagawa naman ako ng special program for foreign language. At ang pinili ay Korean. So I suppose sa buong Mimaropa region, kami lang yung school na nag-o-offer ng Korean language. And I know, bakit hindi Mandarin, bakit hindi Spanish? Because we are sensitive sa gusto ng bata na ano ba ang in, K-pop. And we make sure na ang bata pumapasok araw-araw, natututo. Pero dapat nandun din yung enjoyment, masaya, yung excitement, at natatouch natin yung kanilang gusto. And I'm also reiterating na we are on the right track kasi sa pasukan, October 5, alam naman natin, October 5, World Teachers Day. As I perennially observe, mas masasaya pa ang mga bata during Teachers Day. Kasi sila yung binibigyan ng laya. Ano ba ang plano nila para sa programang ito? So, para nga more on Students Day yung Teachers Day, October 4 pa lang nagse-celebrate na, no. And of course last Sunday, so we joined the International Conference for High School Students, and our selected students, ito po yung sponsored by Supratarka, a Japanese non-government organization, and we represent our country, and they expressed their opinion how to maintain world peace in time of pandemic. Ano? Paano naman yung mga batang mahihirap? Am I 5 minutes na ba ako? Okay, thank you. Thank you, attorney.
Okay.
So I would like good afternoon to everyone. So I hope I am audible and clear.
Sherlyn, thank you very, very much, Sherlyn. Sabi mo nga kanina, you have been a student leader before, an SK chairman, at saka ngayon principal ka na. Kaya tama-tama na isa ka sa kinuha nating participant ngayon or reactor kasi na-experience mo lahat ng pagiging student leader at saka ngayon ikaw na isang leader ng eskwelahan. At saka sabi mo nga kanina, may diversity na yung mga estudyante natin. Kaya importante that we tap their diversity at saka yung different competencies nila for them to participate. That is very, very nice, Sir Elaine. So for now, I think we get to thank our panel reactors. Maraming salamat sa ating mga panel reactors. Sir Elaine, Sir Willie, and Shireen. Thank you very, very much for your participation in this episode 2 of our webinar. Sa punto na to, marami na tayong mga tanong at suhestyon na nakukuha mula sa ating mga participants sa Zoom at sa social media. Iniimbitahan ko ulit ang ating resource speaker na si Ms. Tess Felipe para sa ating question and answer portion.
Yes, nandito ako, Orville.
Hi, Ma'am Tess. Nice to see you po again.
Yes, I've been listening.
May masasabi po ba kayo sa mga reactions ng ating panel reactors, Ma'am Tess?
Very rich yung kanilang reactions. Unahin ko yung kay Shireen na minention niya yung desirable new environment kasi nga because of COVID, iba yung learning environment, no? Iba yung mangyayari. And I would like to underscore yung sinabi niya na importante yung relationships. The right to respect the child is important, but I must also underscore that teachers have the right to be respected as well. Hindi one way ito kasi yung teachers, they are covered by the broader human rights. So bawat isa may karapatan na bigyan ng due respect. So yung kay Mr. Willie naman, parent representative natin, you are right, Sir Willie. Ngayon sa panahon ng COVID, kung di pa nagka-COVID, hindi pa papansinin yung mga parents. Pero ngayon, they are an important partner of educators to ensure that learning continues at home. Kaya maganda yung sinabi mo na merong discussion board, no? And I just hope the discussion boards will be positive rather than pointing fingers on what are the flaws of the system. So partner tayong lahat ng DepEd. Yung kay Sir Alain naman, yung principal, I like the idea of K-pop. In-adjust niya agad on the interest of the children yung kanyang programa on offering the Korean language. Yung school FB page, that is very common now. I see that with my own children. They have an FB page. And on episode 4, and in the succeeding, I think we will talk about online risk. So, kasi alam niyo po with FB, with the right to express themselves, nandun yung risk that they can bully others or be bullied. So we will take that up in the next episodes. So yun lang, Orville. Ano yung ibang tanong pa?
I'm pretty sure yung mga participants natin po will be very excited yung sa episode 4 kasi kalimitan, yun yung mga issues ngayon eh. So ano po, meron po tayong first na question. How do we transform a non-conducive home environment to a more productive and participative one?
Ayan.
Magandang tanong to.
Yan, ninote ko din kanina yan. I think it was in the Q&A box, no? Okay. So, unang-una, kailangan, let's look at the root cause. Bakit hindi conducive yung learning environment? In order to solve a problem, di ba? Alam natin lahat yan, in planning, strategic planning. Alam natin na to solve a problem, alamin mo muna, saan ba nagmumula yung problema? What is the root cause? So my recommendation is hanapin muna, pag-aralan what makes the place non-conducive. No? Yun, meron bang kapitbahay na may karaoke? Kung may kapitbahay na may karaoke or merong computer shop, pumunta ka na kay mayor, no, or kay barangay captain at makipag-ano ka and find a solution to that kasi hindi dapat ma-disturb ang learning environment. So pwede na ba 'yon?
Yes po. Parang root cause.
Alam mo yun, I'm sure.
Okay po. May second question po tayo at saka for the interest of time po, this will be our second and last question. Sabihin lang po natin na marami pang mga questions pero of course, don't worry kasi meron pa tayong third and fourth episode. Baka yung mga tanong nila masasagot sa third and fourth episode natin. So ito po yung second question. How can we ensure that students can still participate and will be heard now that they will be learning at home?
Ayan, big issue yan eh. Diba? Kaya kung napansin mo yung presentation natin talks about marginalized. Diba? Kasi yung estudyante na self-learner, medyo alam na niya, no? Alam na niya kung paano siya matututo on his own. Pero yung disadvantage, either wala siyang internet o yung parents niya mismo cannot help kasi baka illiterate, no? So, yung mga issues na yung kailangan pagtulong-tulungan. So again, as I mentioned in the earlier problem, alamin natin kung ano ba yung root cause ng problem. Bakit hindi pwedeng matuto yung bata at home? No? Kasi baka mamaya anong tawag doon? Battered, binubugbog pala siya. So we need a legal solution to that. We need to bring that up to the barangay captain. That could be the issue. Or baka wala siyang internet. Meron siyang tawag doon cellphone pero wala siyang pang-load. And I think DepEd has a lot of solutions to that. Yung mga load coming from the service providers. So that's the kind of reflection which I had in reflection for ano pa yung pwede nating gawin? How can we make a difference? Yun. So tama yung ginagawa nyo. Think of a problem and then we will jointly think, collaboratively think of solutions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tess. Indeed, it will be a collaborative efforts of DepEd and other stakeholders. Tama po ba ako, ma'am?
Yes, very well, Orville.
Okay. Once again, ma'am, thank you very much and see you next week for our third and fourth episode po. Thank you very much, Ma'am Tess.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay. Ang main topic natin today ay right to participation at napaka-lively at very participative ang ating mga kasama ngayong hapon. Thank you sa ating resource speaker at sa ating panel reactors for sharing your knowledge and insights. Bago tayo magtapos, tinatawag ko si Attorney Hill para sa ilang reminders at sa schedule ng next episode. Attorney Hill, hello again.
Hello again to Orville. So, grabe ang discussion today. I think it's very deep, very broad din na pag-usapan natin about the right to participation. So, I hope maraming natutunan yung ating mga participants now. A few reminders. Tungkol sa post-test at evaluation, alam ko maraming nagtatanong. Yung link po na yan ay nasa Facebook status message at ipopost din po namin yan sa comment section sa Facebook at sa chat box ng Zoom. So you can access that and it will be active until 6 p.m. today. So reminder po, until 6 p.m. today only lang siya magiging active. Yesterday, we already had 17,000 response, more than 17,000 responses from yesterday and hanggang 6 p.m. lang namin siya kinat. So marami po talaga nagpa-participate sa ating webinar at sa ating evaluation. So thank you po. But again, reminder, only until 6 p.m. today. And find the link in the Facebook status message, comment section, and chat box. Tungkol naman po sa schedule, para po sa series na ito, Child Rights and Education, Episode 3 will be on Monday, September 14, and the topic is the right to survival and health. So very important ngayong COVID-19 pandemic. And September 15, Tuesday is Episode 4 on the right to protection. So yung mga child protection issues, pag-uusapan natin dyan next Tuesday. Pero, bukas, meron po tayong series na magsa-start for parents and guardians on positive discipline in education. So invite po ninyo ang ating mga parents, ang makilala ninyong guardians, and of course, many of our teachers are also parents. So I'm sure you would also be very interested in our webinar tomorrow with Save the Children Philippines at also 3 o'clock p.m. Same place po. Yun lang po, Attorney Arbs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Attorney Hill. So sabi nga ni Attorney Hill kanina, meron yung another webinar bukas na mag-uumpisa about positive discipline. It will be the first episode, okay, sa positive discipline na webinar. So ang target participants natin doon ay mga parents and guardians, pero of course, alam naman natin, kalimitan ng mga teachers natin are also parents. At saka dapat talaga malaman to ng lahat. Di ba? So that's why we are inviting everybody, not only in Zoom, but also in Facebook, because this is open to everybody. In fact, yung webinar series natin, a total of 12, lahat to open to everybody. They can actually access this in Facebook. So hopefully, we'll have more viewers in the succeeding episodes. For now, yung viewers natin umabot din ng more than 17,000. So hopefully, yung mag-participate or tsaka mag-fill out ng link for purposes ng ating attendance and evaluation will also be more than 17,000 as well. So, as I've said, we have the link and now we will be giving you the link for the attendance and the evaluation form. You may access the link through the Zoom chat box and in Facebook comment section. Also, nasa caption din ng webinar nito ang link. Paalala lang po, hanggang 6 p.m. today lang bukas ang link. Sabi nga ni Attorney Hill kanina. So hanggang 6 p.m. lang bukas ang link. And if you have a copy of the link, please share it to others. Kahapon parang may mga iba na nahirapan na mag-access sa link. Probably they may be challenged technically. So if you get to have a copy of the link, share it to other friends who also are participants of this webinar. Okay? Please access it after our webinar. So to officially close the day and this episode, may call again our beloved Undersecretary for Legal Affairs, Attorney Josephine D. Maribojo, for the closing remarks. Over to you, Yusek Jo.
Hi, magandang hapon sa iyo, Attorney Orville. Maraming salamat. Magandang hapon din po sa ating lahat. Una sa lahat, nagpapasalamat po tayo sa inyo na mga dumalo sa ating pangalawang webinar sa serye ng webinar tungkol sa child rights. Dito man kayo sa loob ng Zoom meeting o sa live stream sa DepEd Facebook at sa iba't ibang social media. Kung kayo po ay dumalo rin kahapon, pasensya na po, ngunit kailangan ko pong ulitin itong aking mensahe. Sana magdudot ang pangalawang pagdinig ninyo ng mensahe na ito ng mas malalim na pag-unawa. O kung hindi man, maaari kayong umidlip ng ilang minuto siguro. Nagpapasalamat din po tayo sa ating mga partner, ang UNICEF Philippines, lalong-lalo na kay Ms. Tess na nanguna sa hapon ito. Sa Positive Youth Development Network, sa National Parents Teachers Association, at Humanity and Inclusion Philippines para sa ating Filipino Sign Language interpreter. Salamat po kay Shireen, kay Sir Willie, kay Sir Alain na ating ding mga naging tagapagsalita at syempre kay Attorney Orville na ating host. Nagpapasalamat din tayo sa Child Rights and Protection Team ng Office of the Undersecretary for Legal Affairs at ibang mga opisina sa legal service, sa National Educators Academy of the Philippines o NEAP sa pangunguna ni Director John Shena, sa Public Affairs Service sa pangunguna ni Director June Godoy, at sa Office of the Chief of Staff and Undersecretary Attorney Nepomuceno Malaluan sa pagtulong na buuin po itong webinar na ito. Higit sa lahat, nagpapasalamat po tayo sa ating mahal na kalihim ng Kagawaran ng Edukasyon kay Secretary Liling Briones sa kanyang buong suporta sa karapatan ng bata at sa ating webinar series tungkol dito. Ayon nga sa mensahe ni Secretary Liling kanina, na naniniwala at tumatalima ang DepEd sa rights-based education o RDE o ang pagpapatupad ng edukasyon sa elementarya, sekundarya at alternative learning system na batay sa karapatan ng mga bata. Ang tungkulin ko ngayong hapon ay magbigay ng closing remarks bilang pagtatapos at pagsarado nitong pangalawang webinar sa Child Rights. Pero kung tutuusin po, nagsisimula pa lamang tayo at nagbubukas ng pinto. Alam niyo noong November 2019, nung idiniwang ang National Children's Month at ika-30 anibersaryo ng United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, ang DepEd po ay nagsagawa ng kauna-unahang National Summit on the Rights of the Child in Education sa Heritage Hotel Manila. Sa kauna-unahang pagkakataon po, nagtipon-tipon ang daang-daang matataas na opisyal, kawani at mga guro ng DepEd, mga senador, kongresista, kinatawan ng Supreme Court, ng Office of the President, ang mismo eksperto at miyembro ng Committee ng Convention on the Rights of the Child sa Geneva, Switzerland ay pumarito rin. Ang mga pinuno ng pampubliko at pribadong paaralan, ng business community, ng international at local child rights organizations, ng federasyon ng mga magulang, at higit sa lahat, dumalo ang mga bata. Ano ang ating tinutukan ng pansin, pinag-usapan at pinagplanuhan para maisakatuparan sa summit na iyon? Wala pong iba kundi ang bata at ang kanyang mga karapatan. Noong pong panahong iyon, nung kami at baka ilan din sa inyo na lumahok sa summit, ay naglilista ng mga pangarap at nagbabalangkas ng mga plano para sa pagpapatupad at pagpapatibay ng karapatan ng bata sa basic education o child rights in basic education. Walang ni isa sa amin na nakakaalam na sa loob lamang ng ilang buwan ay kahaharapin natin ang isang napakalaki at matagalang krisis, ang COVID-19 pandemic. Walang ni isa na nag-akalang mababaliktad ang ating mundo, mababago ang ating buhay, maiiba ang mukha ng edukasyon at pag-aaral. Tiniyak namin na ang bata ay kasali sa summit na iyon sapagkat may karapatan ng bata na siya ay pakinggan at makilahok. At nung panahong iyon, nanawagan sa buong bansa, sa buong mundo, ang ating batang speaker na si Zykrel Barola, na silang mga bata ay may mga karapatan na dapat nilang tinatamasa. Kasama na ang karapatan nilang sila ay pakinggan. tayo ay nakinig sa kanila, nagplano at nagsagawa ng mga hakbang sa pagpapatibay ng pagtaguyod ng karapatan ng mga bata. Ngunit para pong malaking alon na humampas, biglang ginunaw ng COVID-19 pandemic ang mga plano at hakbang na iyon. Ngunit yun ay panandalian lamang sapagkat narito po tayo ngayon ayon sa mga pinangarap at pinlano noon sa summit na nagsasagawa ng webinar sa child rights sa kauna-unahang pagkakataon. Kung dati sa ating National Summit noong November 2018 ay daang-daang tao ang nagtipon, ngayon libo-libo po tayo magkakasama sa webinar na ito. Sa huling tala po ay nasa 17,000, sabi nga ni Attorney Orville. Ayon naman sa impormasyong binigay sa akin kahapon, umabot sa 236,000 views o taong dumalo sa ating webinar kahapon kasama ang mga nanonood sa DepEd Facebook at iba pang social media. Sa araw to malalaman din po natin kung ilan ba ang views. Sa kalaunan, sa kauna-unahan ring pagkakataon, ipapalabas din sa telebisyon itong mga webinar tungkol sa karapatan ng bata. At sa kauna-unahan ring pagkakataon, tulad ng nabanggit ni Secretary Briones sa kanyang pahayag, bahagi na ng Professional Development Program ng mga guro at kawani ng DepEd itong child rights at child protection. Kasama na itong mga webinars na ating sinasagawa. Muli, kahapon, umabot sa 17,000 ang sumagot sa post-test ng webinar para sa kanilang professional development portfolio. Pinapakita po niya na talagang nagiging bahagi o mainstream na ang child rights sa ating departamento at sa basic education. Ang mga ito ay pagpapatibay at testamento na walang anumang makahahadlang sa pagpapatupad at pagsulong sa karapatan ng bata, maging sa kabila ng pandemya at ng mga hamon at hirap na dulot dito. Ulitin ko ang pinahayag ko noon sa National Summit. Ang DepEd po ay taus-pusong nanunumpa, tagalangin, protektahan at isakatuparan ang karapatan ng mga batang tulad ni Shireen na ating reactor kanina, nang may pagbibigay diin sa mga karapatan sa edukasyon, di lamang dahil sa ito ay tungkulin ng DepEd sa ilalim ng pinakamatataas na batas. Yan ay ang Saligang Batas ng Pilipinas at ang United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, kundi dahil ang bawat bata po, gaano man kabata o kaliit, ay hindi kalahating tao, kundi buong tao na may dangal at karapatan na nararapat lamang na ating igalang. Every child, no matter how young or small, is not half a person, but a whole person with dignity and rights that we, as a whole society, should respect, protect, and fulfill. Sila man ay mga bata at tumutubo pa, sila katulad natin ay mga tao, may kapantay na dangal at karapat-dapat galangin tulad ng bawat isa sa atin. Iyan ang ibig sabihin ng lahat ng tao ay pinanganak na malaya at pantay-pantay. But that is what all human beings are born free and equal means. Kaya bata-bata, karapatan mo, tungkulin ko. Tungkulin ang bawat isa sa amin na kumakalinga sa iyo. At sa panahon ngayon, ang panawagan mo, panawagan ni Shireen, ay isulong karapatan ng mga bata sa panahon ng pandemya. Sa tunay na diwa ng bayanihan, kapit kamay po tayong lahat, nakatatanda at bata, sa pagtaguyod ng karapatan ng bata. Pagsumikapan po natin ng lubos na maranasan pa rin ng mga bata ang kaligayahan ng pagkatuto, ng pag-aaral at ng pagiging bata sa gitna ng mahirap na panahon ng pandemya. Minsan lang po sila magiging bata. Maraming salamat po at muli, magandang hapon po sa ating lahat.
Thank you very much, Yusek Jo. At maraming salamat sa ating partners, UNICEF Philippines, Positive Youth Development Network, at the National Parents Teachers Association, lalong-lalo na sa ating mga participants. Salamat sa pagdalo sa ating second episode ng Child Rights in Education webinar series. Sama-sama tayong isulong karapatan ng mga bata sa edukasyon sa panahon ng COVID-19. Don't forget to use hashtag Sulong Edukasyon on your social media posts and tag us, DepEd Philippines. Sa ating pagtatapos ngayong hapon, hinihikayat ko ang lahat na sabay-sabay bigkasin ang panatang makabayan bilang commitment ng bawat isa sa atin sa isakatupad ang lahat ng karapatan na nararapat sa ating mga kabataan.
Sama-sama at buong puso po nating bigkasin ang panatang makabata. Lahat-lahat, ako, banggitin ang pangalan mo, bilang mamamayang Pilipino ay kinikilala ang kahalagaan ng mga bata sa lipunan. Dahil dito, ako ay nangangakong isulong, protektahan, igalang at pangalagaan ang karapatan ng bawat bata, anuman ang kanyang kulay, kasarian, lahi, relihiyon, kultura, estado sa buhay, may kapansanan man o wala. Upang matiyak ang kasiyahan ng mga bata, naniniwala akong nararapat na matamasa nila ang mga ito. Masilang at mabigyan ng sapat na pangangailangan upang mabuhay ng maayos ang bata. Lumago ang kaalaman, kakayahan at talento. Maproteksyonan sa anumang uri ng pang-aabuso, panganib at makilahok sa mga gawain patungkol sa mga bata at maipagtanggol at matulungan ng pamahalaan sa lahat ng panahon. Sa tulong ng Poong May Kapal, aking isa sa puso at isa sa gawa ang lahat na ito dahil ang mga bata ang pag-asa at siyang magpapaunlad sa ating bayan.
Again, that was our Panatang Makabata. So magpapasalamat po tayo ulit sa ating mga partners, ang UNICEF Philippines, Positive Youth Development Network, at ang National Parents Teachers Association of the Philippines. Maraming salamat sa ating mga panelists, speakers, at sign language interpreters from humanity and inclusion organizations. Maraming salamat sa ating mga participants from all over the Philippines. We have reached thousands again. And don't forget to use the hashtag Sulong Edukalidad when you post your selfies attending this webinar. See you next Monday. Next week, don't forget the attendance for your certificates. The link is live now. Bata, karapatan mo, tungkulin ko. Bata, aking inaaruga. Bata, akong pinangga. Salamat. Thank you very much, everyone.
Lola, alam mo ba, ayaw pa rin mag-school ng friend kong si Brian. Kasi daw may COVID pa.
Ano namang sinabi mo sa kanya, Apo?
Ang sabi ko po, hindi naman po talaga papasok sa school eh. Sa bahay lang mag-aaral hanggat may COVID pa.
Ano namang sagot niya?
Tapos sabi niya, paano daw mag-aaral sa bahay wala namang teacher sa bahay? Diba nga Lola? Ano nga ulit yung tawag doon sa hindi naman papasok sa school pero mag-aaral pa rin?
Apo, ang tawag niyan ay distance learning.
Yun nga po, mag-aaral pa rin kami gamit ng computer. Di ba Lola?
Oo, pero bukod sa online, may mga lessons din na ipapalabas sa TV at radio para makapag-aral pa rin ang mga bata kahit wala kayong computer at internet.
Paano po kapag wala ring TV at radyo?
May ipamimigay na mga printed material ang mga teachers sa inyo.
Di ba po ang tawag dun blend?
Ako, blended learning. Ibig sabihin ng blended learning ay gagamitin ang iba't ibang pamamaraan ng pagtuturo gamit ang internet, ang TV, radyo at ang print para hindi kailangang pumunta sa school ng mga teachers at mga bata.
Kaya po pala si Teacher Rose hindi na rin kailangan pumasok ng school.
Tama, hindi na rin papasok ang mga teachers sa school para gagabayan pa rin nila kayo at laging tatawagan ang mga magulang para kukumustahin ang pag-aaral ng mga bata tulad mo.
Tumawag nga po si Teacher Rose si nanay. Ang sabi niya, mag-download ng DepEd Commons sa cellphone Games ba yun, Lola?
May kasama ding games. Pero, yung may matutunan ka. May mga lessons din kasi sa DepEd Commons na pwedeng gamitin ng mga magulang at teachers para maturuan ang mga bata.
Sasabihin ko rin po kay Brian na mag-download siya ng DepEd Commons.
At sabihin mo rin sa kanya na huwag na siyang matakot mag-school. Dahil sa pasukan, sa bahay lang naman kayo mag-aaral. Gamit ang internet. Kung walang internet, TV. Kung walang TV, radyo. At kung walang radyo, ay print.
Oo nga po, Lola. Hindi naman po pala dapat huminto sa pag-aaral kahit may COVID
Magtutulungan kami para magpatuloy ang edukasyon.
Sabay na babangon, sama-samang ahon, ihanda ang sarili sa hamon. Pagpipigil sa pagsulong sa kinabukasan ng katuon para sa di kalidad na edukasyon.
Balik eskwela na naman, sa puso ang kahandaan, handang isip, handa bukas, sa pagkakaisa ay may lakas.
Ito na ang normal, online learning at modular. Di pa kailangang mag-face to face, gamit ang cellphone at radio base. Yakapin na ang pagbabago, pahirapan, kaya natin to. Lakasan ng iyong buhok sa bagong normal, sa bagong mundo. Muslim, Kristiyano, katutubo, isang hanggarin san patungo. Ipagpatuloy pag-aaral mo, tagumpay ay naghihintay sa'yo.
Balik eskwela na naman, sa puso ang kahandaan, handang isip, handa bukas, sa pagkakaisa ay may lakas.
Ito na ang normal, online learning at modular. Di pa kailangang mag-face to face, gamit ang cellphone at radio base. Yakapin na ang pagbabago, pahirapan, kaya natin to. Lakasan ng iyong luhog sa bagong normal, sa bagong mundo.
Isang alang-alang natin ang ating kaligtasan sa bawat oras at panahon, magpakailanman. Hangat palagi ng ating paaralan ang matuto, gayon din maging ligtas ang kabataan. Tayo ay magkaisa, halina't sama-sama, kasali lahat, kasama lahat, para sa lahat. Pilipinas, maghanda ka na, balik eskwela na, tara. Tayong lahat sabay-sabay